All right, Chinese style pork with eggs. You won't see this on your takeaway menu. This is a dish from, I believe, from the Hokkien region of China, and it's quite common to find it in the Malay Peninsula as well. This is one of my favourite pork dishes. It's sumptuous. For a start, we're going to need some pork and we're going to need some eggs. So I've got 4 hard-boiled eggs which I've shelled and they're ready to go. You can hard-boil them and shell them any way you find handy. And I've got about 800 grams of pork which I've cut into large pieces and where I could with the skin on. Moving around, I've got a ½ cup of light soy sauce, and that's a Chinese light soy sauce. I've got about the same amount. You can use Chinese wine, but in this case I've used a Fino sherry, which is a very good substitute. In the finished dish I can't tell the difference between that and Chinese cooking wine. About the same amount as you've got soy sauce. I've got a couple of teaspoons worth of dark soy sauce. An interesting spice here, I've got some Chinese Sichuan peppercorns. It isn't actually a true pepper, it's actually a little dried flower bud, and that's got a nice, wonderful flavour and a sort of a numbing sensation when you eat it, which is highly prized in certain parts of China, and I particularly like it. In this little pot I've got some whole spices. I've got some dried cassia, which is a bit like cinnamon, it's the outer bark of cinnamon, and in here also I've got some star anise. I've got 4 pieces of star anise seed in there. You'll find where the Chinese braise, they quite often will use star anise seed in braising, and they often serve it with clams and that sort of thing as well, because wherever you find chemical flavours like offal for instance in Chinese cookery, they will often cook that with the star anise because it masks the chemical flavours you've got on the offal. I've got about 6 or 7 cloves of garlic there, which I'm going to chop up. I've got a modest amount of dried red chilli, and these are Asian spur chilies which are just dried. I've also got a couple of pieces, about a thumb-sized piece of ginger, which I've sliced into those pieces you see there. So that's all we need. I'm going to switch focus now and we'll show you this as it goes into cook. Okay, one thing I neglected to mention was the sugar element in this dish. What we've got here is a good generous tablespoon of soft brown sugar. That goes in. There are similarities with this dish and with the pork adobo, the Philippine pork adobo. The main difference of course being the spices in this dish and the fact that we're using a wine instead of vinegar to render the meat down. So that needs to now cook away. I'm going to cook that covered, bring it to a complete boil and simmer that for about 40 minutes. Alright, there it is after 40 minutes and the pork is looking great and smelling fantastic, and I'm just going to introduce the eggs now. So in go the eggs, and I want to stir those around in that sauce to make sure they get nice and brown. I want them to look nice and brown. There's quite a lot of meat here for me and my brother, so I'm not putting quite so many eggs in there, but you can put 6, perhaps even 8 eggs if you want to string the meat out a bit further. And I'm going to turn the heat back up on that and bring that back up to a boil. Alright, there it is, coming up to the boil. Now I've got about 4 teaspoons of corn flour, which I've mixed with a bit of water, and now I'm going to introduce that to the sauce to thicken it up and stir that in. That's really good, that's just about right. All that remains now is for me to show you this one served up. So there we have it, braised pork with eggs. Lovely. Enjoy.